Do you know what it's like to work for something so hard it becomes part of your DNA? 7 years. 7 years of sleepless nights, cheap noodles, missed holidays, and head-spinning debt, all of it leading to this one moment. I'm Sarah, and I'm standing in the Colorado State Supreme Court building in Denver. It's all polished wood, smelling of old books and floor wax, judges in robes. This wasn't just a graduation, this was the bar admission ceremony. The moment I would officially become an attorney. I paid for the plane tickets from Phoenix for my mother, Karen, my stepfather Richard, and my stepbrother Chad. They were sitting right there, third row. And for a moment, just one pathetic moment, I felt proud. I thought they were proud. "Will the following group please come forward?" the bailiff called out. My heart was pounding. This was it, and that's when they stood up. Not one, but all three of them. Richard was whispering loudly. Karen looked flustered, and Chad was just staring at his phone. They started shuffling their way out of the queue, bumping past the knees of other people. Excuse me, breaking the reverent hush of the courtroom. I could see other families looking at them, then looking at me. My face was on fire. I raised my right hand, my voice shaking as I repeated the oath, but my eyes were locked on their backs as they disappeared through the massive oak doors. The second the ceremony ended, my phone buzzed. A text from my mom. "Sorry, sweetie, had to run. Chad's triathlon is starting. You know how he gets nervous. We'll celebrate you later." They traded 7 years of my life for a local amateur triathlon. In that moment, standing in my rented suit alone in the crowd of celebrating families, I realized it. I wasn't a daughter, I was just convenient, and that convenience had just expired. I've always been reliable, Sarah. You know the type, right? Every family has one. The one who remembers the birthdays, the one making a 10-year plan at 18, the one who never causes trouble because she's too busy fixing everyone else's. When my mom, Karen, was going through her first messy divorce, I was the teenager acting as her confidant. I was the one sorting through bills while she cried, the one making pro-con lists when she started dating Richard. "You're so mature for your age," she'd say, and it never sounded like a compliment. It sounded like an excuse to put her adult baggage on my shoulders. Then she married Richard, and I officially became invisible. Richard is the kind of man who measures everyone's worth by either their bank account or how much they can inflate his ego. I did neither. His son, Chad, did both. So, I became background noise. I went to law school in Denver because it offered me a near-full scholarship. Near is the key word. My family in Phoenix, living in a $1 million home in Scottsdale, didn't contribute a single cent. "We'd love to help, honey," my mom would say. But all of Richard's money is tied up in these new projects. You know how it is. I did know. I knew it meant I'd be working 30 hours a week, juggling 2 internships and a research assistant job, all while trying to keep up with classmates whose only worry was where to go for lunch. And even then, I was their emergency service. About once a month, I'd get a panicked call from my mom. "Sarah," she'd whisper, "Richard is furious. I might have gone a little overboard at Neiman Marcus, and he checks the statements like a hawk. Could you just loan me a couple thousand? Just for a week?" I knew a week was code for never, and I, the idiot, would wire her money I had saved for rent or for a new interview suit. And Richard, the second he found out I was in law school, I became his free legal counsel. He'd email me 40-page commercial lease agreements at 10 p.m. "Sarah, give this a once-over, will you? Need to sign it in the morning." He never asked if I had a torts exam. He never offered to pay. Why would he? It was just reliable Sarah. Even Chad used me. "Hey, Sarah, my supplement sponsor sent over a contract. Can you check it? It's got a lot of lawyer crap in it." I'd read his lawyer crap in the library, skipping dinner, while he posted videos about his grind at the gym. I was their ATM, their lawyer, their therapist. I was a tool kept in a drawer, pulled out when something was broken, and put back when it was fixed. You don't thank a hammer for hitting a nail. You don't celebrate your ATM's graduation. You just expect it to work. That's why they left my admission ceremony. In their world, I wasn't achieving something. I was just updating my function. I was Sarah, the licensed attorney. Now, which just meant my free advice was slightly more valuable. They didn't see the 7 years of blood and sweat. They just saw a utility getting an upgrade. To understand how they could just walk out, you have to understand who they are. Let's start with my stepfather, Richard. Richard is a walking billboard for old money wealth, but without any of the actual old money. He made his fortune in questionable Phoenix real estate flips in the early 2000s and has been coasting on those fumes ever since. His entire personality is built on the idea that he is self-made. He is a classic narcissist. Everything in his world exists to either reflect his greatness or to serve him. He isn't an evil man, in the sense that he doesn't sit up at night stroking a cat and plotting. He's just empty. He's incapable of an empathy that doesn't directly benefit him. When he married my mother, Karen, he got two things: an attractive woman to show off at golf events and a family to dominate. I didn't fit in. I was too independent, too quiet, and frankly, too smart. He couldn't impress me with his big business maneuvers because I, even as a student, could see they were just risky gambles. And then there's Chad. Chad is Richard's son from his first marriage and the perfect golden child. Why? Because he is the perfect mirror. Chad is a 28-year-old man whose primary accomplishment in life is a low body fat percentage. He's a fitness influencer. His days consist of 2-hour workouts, posing for selfies with protein shakes, and recording motivational videos about beating the grind. Of course, it's easy to beat the grind when you don't have a job. Richard adores him because Chad is a project. Richard funds his supplements, his gym memberships, his high-tech camera gear. He sees Chad as an extension of his own brand of success. Every triathlon Chad enters isn't for Chad, it's for Richard, so he can tell his friends at the country club that his son's an elite athlete. Chad, for his part, has learned to play the game. He's not stupid, but he is profoundly lazy and entitled. He knows exactly what to say to Richard to keep the money flowing. He has absorbed all of his father's narcissism, but with none of his business acumen. And finally, my mother, Karen. She is the most complicated and the most tragic of them all. She wasn't born a monster. She was made one by fear. After her first divorce, she was left with almost nothing. She was terrified of being poor again. Richard was her life raft. He offered her the house in Scottsdale, the club membership, and the platinum credit card, and in return, she had to pay with her soul. Her job is to be the supportive wife. That meant Richard's values became her values. If Richard thought Chad was a rising star, then so did Karen. She became Chad's #1 fan, his social media manager, his personal chef. Her love for Richard was transactional, and that transaction required her to sacrifice her own daughter. That's why they left. For Richard, my ceremony was a boring, pointless ritual that took focus away from his real project, Chad. For Chad, anything that wasn't about him was invisible, and for my mother, it was a loyalty test. A choice between her daughter's lifetime achievement and her husband's passing whim, and she made her choice. She chose the triathlon. I walked out of the courtroom, and the silence in the hallway was deafening. You know, in lawyer movies, that's the moment the family rushes you, crying, hugging. It was happening all around me. I saw an older woman kissing her son, their family's first ever lawyer. I saw a father holding his daughter in a bear hug, both of them in tears. People were taking pictures with judges, waving their new licenses. It was a carnival of pride. And I was standing alone. I held this embossed piece of paper, my license, in my hand. 7 years of my life, reduced to one sheet. I could still feel the buzz from the text. I pulled it out and read it again, thinking maybe I'd misunderstood. Sorry, sweetie. Had to run. Chad's triathlon is starting. You know how he gets nervous. We'll celebrate you later. Let's do a little legal analysis. Had to run. As if it were an emergency. As if the building were on fire. No, it was a choice. You know how he gets nervous? That was the cruelest part. My 7 years of stress, my exam-induced panic attacks, my fear of failure, all of it meant nothing compared to Chad's pre-race jitters for an amateur event. We'll celebrate you later. The throwaway lie we all know. The rain check that means never. I felt the eyes of other families lingering on me. The single girl in the suit, who wasn't smiling. They must have thought I'd failed. Ironically, that would have been less humiliating. I went to the coffee shop across the street, still in my oath suit. I ordered an espresso I couldn't taste. And then, for some masochistic reason, I opened Instagram. This was the second act of the humiliation, the public one. My mother's feed had exploded. It wasn't just were at the triathlon. It was a full-on media blitz. Post number 1, a selfie from Richard, him and Chad, both in expensive sunglasses. Chad flexing a bicep. Richard's caption, "Here he is, my champion, ready to crush this course. Proud dad, Denver Triathlon, winner." Post number 2, a video from my mom, Chad jumping into the water. She was screaming so loud the audio was distorted. "Go, Chad. Go, my boy. Mommy loves you. You're the best." And then the stories. It was an endless reel, 10, 15, 20 short clips. Here's Chad on the bike, Richard running alongside him like a Secret Service agent. Here's my mother holding a handmade sign with glitter, "CHA's our champion." Here's a close-up of the energy gels they were handing him. Here's a boomerang of the 3 of them clinking post-race smoothies. I scrolled through it all, and then I scrolled through it again. You know what wasn't there? Me. Not one mention. Not one story from the courtroom. Not one post that said, "What a big day. Our Chad is competing, and our Sarah became a lawyer." Nothing. It wasn't an oversight. It was an erasure. They didn't just miss my moment. They replaced it. They took the day that was supposed to be mine, and they loudly, publicly, with glitter and hashtags, made it his. I wasn't a footnote. I wasn't even in the book. I sat there, staring at my phone, until the coffee was cold. The humiliation was complete. It wasn't in the courtroom when they left. It was right now, realizing they hadn't even thought of me once they were out the door. My secret weapon wasn't something I found. It was something I built. It was born 3 years ago, not from malice, but from desperation, their desperation. I was a 2L, a second-year law student, drowning in work and stress, when my mom called me, hysterical. "Sarah, we're going to lose it. Richard, we're losing the house." Here's what had happened. Richard, in his infinite arrogance, had bought that luxury Scottsdale home, but to protect it from his business creditors, he had put the title in Karen's name only. A fortress, he thought. He didn't account for one thing. Karen had terrible credit. She had no income of her own besides what he gave her and a history of missed credit card payments. The only way they'd gotten the mortgage was a predatory adjustable rate loan that had a massive balloon payment due after 3 years. And now, those 3 years were up. Richard's money was tied up, which I knew meant his latest gamble had failed. They couldn't refinance because no bank would give Karen a loan. They were 2 weeks away from foreclosure. I flew to Phoenix. I sat at their giant marble kitchen island. Richard looked defeated. My mother was puffy from crying. "Sarah," Richard started, trying to sound in control, "we need you to co-sign. Just sign the papers for a refinance. It's a formality. You're reliable, Sarah." I looked at him. For the first time, I didn't feel like a kid begging for approval. I felt like a lawyer. "No," I said. The silence was total. My mother stopped crying. Richard frowned. "What do you mean, no?" "I mean, I will not be a co-signer." I said, pulling out a legal pad. "A co-signer assumes 100% of the risk and 0% of the asset. That is a bad deal. I'm not doing it." "Then what do you suggest, brilliant?" he snapped. "That we live on the street?" "I'm suggesting a solution." I said, "We're not going to refinance. We're going to get a new loan. And I won't be a co-signer. I'll be a co-owner." Richard shut up. "Absolutely not. I'm not giving you a piece of my house. Technically," I corrected him, "it's Karen's house. And the bank is about to take it. Then it will be no one's." I looked at my mom. "Mom, here's the deal. I will save this house, but I'm doing it my way." I structured the whole thing myself. I found the lender. I prepared the documents. I drafted a quitclaim deed that transferred the title from Karen, a married woman, to Karen and Sarah as joint tenants with right of survivorship. This meant I owned 50% of the house, outright. But there was another problem. To get a good rate, we needed a significant down payment for the new loan. They didn't have a dime in cash. I did. I had $40,000. It was all my scholarship money, all my savings from 2 jobs, everything I had put away to keep from drowning in student loans. I didn't loan them the money. I sat my mother down and had her sign a notarized promissory note. It stated clearly that she owed me $40,000, payable on demand. They were so panicked, they signed everything. Richard was furious but cornered. Mom was crying in relief, probably not even reading. They thought I was just helping the family. They thought they were just papers. They were wrong. They weren't papers, they were chains. I filed the deed with Maricopa County. I put the original promissory note in a safe deposit box in Denver. They forgot about it a week later. I didn't. I waited. A month passed after the bar admission fiasco. I'd thrown myself into my new job at the Denver firm. I was working 70-hour weeks, learning the ropes, earning the respect of the partners. I had almost started to forget the sting of that humiliation. I hadn't spoken to any of them since that day. No apology, of course, had ever come. No celebrating me later ever happened. It was as if it didn't happen. Then, on a Wednesday afternoon, my office phone rang. It was my mother. "Sarah! Hi, sweetie. I miss you so much." Her voice was fake cheerful, the kind a telemarketer uses. I didn't return the pleasantry. "What do you need, Mom?" I said, my voice flat as I scanned a brief. Her cheer faltered. "Well, just calling to chat. How's Denver?" "You know, your stepfather." "Mom," I cut her off. "I have a client on the other line. What do you need?" A heavy sigh. The fakeness dropped, replaced by the familiar annoyance that I was rushing her. Fine. Look, it's wonderful news. You know Chad's wellness brand idea? Well, Richard found an investor, and it's just going to take off. I was silent. Was a laughable idea, basically just repackaging the same Chinese-made protein powders he shilled on Instagram, but with his face on the label. "So," she continued, "to get it all launched, we just need a little, seed money. Richard wants to restructure some assets, and it's the easiest thing. We just need to take out a HELOC, a home equity line of credit. The bank has it all approved. We just need you to sign something." I leaned back in my chair. There it was. "Sign something?" I asked, innocently. "What exactly?" "Oh, just some stupid paper. You know, the bank, they want all the co-owners. Anyway, just a formality since your name is still on the deed. I'll email it to you. You just e-sign it today, okay? We're in a hurry." I looked at my fingernails. No. Silence. Not an angry silence, but a confused one. Like I'd said a word in a language she didn't understand. "What?" she asked. "I said no," I repeated, my voice clearer now. "I will not be signing. I do not consent to encumbering the asset with more debt." Her voice went up an octave, ringing with panic. "Sarah, don't be ridiculous. This isn't an asset. It's our home. It's for your brother." "First, he's not my brother," I snapped. "Second, it is my asset. 50% of it, to be exact. And I am not jeopardizing my 50%, not to mention my $40,000 in cash that's tied up in it to fund another one of Chad's failed hobbies. My answer is no. You can't." She was sputtering. Richard will kill you. It's his money." "Technically, it's my money," I said, pulling up the promissory note file on my computer. "And it's my house, and it's my signature, and I'm not giving it." I heard a muffled shout. She was screaming for Richard. Then I heard his roar on the line. He must have snatched the phone from her. "You ungrateful little brat," he yelled, and I held the phone away from my ear. "We gave you everything. I will not let you sabotage my son's future because of some childish grudge." "A grudge?" I asked, and my voice went cold as ice. "This isn't a grudge, Richard. This is jurisprudence. You both signed the documents. You thought I was just a convenient little idiot you could use. You were wrong. I'm the lawyer you created. I'll sue you." He shrieked. I laughed. A real loud laugh. "Do it. Please do. I am dying to get you in a deposition and have you explain to a judge why you're trying to force a co-owner to take on a loan against her will for a startup with no business plan. It's called undue influence and breach of fiduciary duty, Richard. Want me to send you the bill for this free consultation?" The line went dead quiet. I could just hear him breathing, thick and furious. The house is not for sale. The loan is not approved. The Bank of Sarah is closed, I said. Have a nice day. I hung up. They didn't fly. They drove. Probably because Richard was too angry to pay for airfare, or maybe he needed the 12-hour drive to fuel his rage. They showed up on a Friday afternoon. I was in my office when my assistant buzzed my line. His voice strained. Sarah, your family is here. They're in the lobby, and they're very loud. Don't let them up, I said, closing my eyes, taking a breath. I'll be right down. I grabbed my bag from my desk. I pulled 2 folders, one with a certified copy of the deed, the other with the original promissory note. I carried them down like armor. When I stepped out of the elevator, the scene in the lobby was exactly what I expected. My mother, Karen, was sobbing on a sofa, playing the victim for everyone present. Richard was pacing in front of the reception desk, his face a blotchy crimson. And Chad, astonishingly, was in his workout gear, sipping a smoothie, as if this were just another stop on his day. Richard saw me and jabbed a finger. There she is, the one who's destroying this family. I walked calmly toward them. Hello, Richard. Karen. Chad. You're making a scene. You need to leave. We are not leaving until you sign those papers. Karen shrieked, her tears instantly drying, replaced by steel. I told you, Mom, I'm not signing anything. You're just jealous, Chad suddenly shouted, his first words. You're just jealous because I have a real brand and you're just a paper pusher. I looked at him, really looked at him. Chad, your real brand is being funded by money your father doesn't have, and this paper pusher owns the house you live in. Richard stepped toward me, so close I could smell the mints on his breath. You are going to regret this. I will take you to court for everything you have. Good, I said. I turned to the lobby security guard who was already gripping his radio. Sir, it's fine, but I'd like you to be a witness. I turned back to them. Let's handle this right here, like lawyers. I opened the first folder and held out the deed to Richard. This is the quitclaim deed. It says I own 50% of the property. You cannot get a HELOC, you cannot sell, you cannot breathe on it without my signature, which you don't have. Then I opened the second folder and held the promissory note out to Karen. And this is the $40,000 promissory note you signed, Mom. Notice the phrase right here, payable on demand. This is my demand. I want repayment, in full, immediately. Karen's face went white. But we don't have $40,000. Then you have a serious problem, I said. Because here's what's going to happen. You are not getting the loan. You are not getting my signature. And you will immediately begin the process of paying me my debt. But if you ever raise your voice to me again, if you ever show up at my office or in my state again, I'm going to do one better. I took a step back. I'm going to file a partition action. Richard, who had been pale, now looked like he was going to be sick. He, unlike Karen, knew exactly what that meant. That, I explained, as if to a child, is when I asked the court to force a sale of the house. It will go to a public auction for less than it's worth. And from the escrow, before you two see a single cent, I will get my $40,000 back plus interest, and then I will get my 50% of what's left. You will be left with nothing. Is that what you want, Richard? You want to play this game with me? With me? In my profession? Chad looked confused. Richard looked broken. And Karen, she looked at me with a hatred that could only come from being completely and totally beaten. You're a monster, she whispered. I nodded. No, Mom, I'm a lawyer. The one you skipped the swearing in for. You should have stayed. You might have learned something. I turned to the guard. They're leaving. Now. I walked back to the elevators, and I didn't look back. I heard Richard start to say something, but the guard was already on his radio. As the elevator doors closed, cutting off their shouting, I leaned back against the wall. I didn't cry. I didn't smile. I just breathed. For the first time in my life, the air was all mine.